Welcome back to our HLN Special Report. Today's announcement by the coroner has raised new questions in the death of Gabby Petito. But Dr. Brent Blue did discuss one theory that has been brought up time and time again by everyone from professional investigators to web sleuths.
Was Gabby Petito pregnant?
She was not pregnant.
So there you have it. A no, Gabby was not pregnant on the day she died. Want to bring in forensic expert Joseph Scott Morgan again. And Casey, I'll start with you, Casey, on this. The coroner refused to answer so many questions. Why get right to that one? It just seemed a little odd, keeping some close and not speaking to the public about them, but saying right away, no, she was not pregnant.
I think it's been on everyone's mind that perhaps the source of all of the stress in their relationship could have been a pregnancy. It is a yes/no question. It's not like the other questions about did she have bruises that may have been healing? Was there evidence of previous physical domestic violence? They stated we can't answer that under the law. But with pregnancy, they have nothing to lose by just letting that out. And it really does quell a lot of speculation. So why not just let it out there? It doesn't mean she was never pregnant. It just means that she was not pregnant when she died. And I think that once we take that out of there, we really get to focus right back on the real issue at hand, which is the strangulation. Of course, it's that personal, intimate crime. It can take minutes. Joseph Scott Morgan can speak to this. Up to 5 minutes to actually strangle the life out of someone, and it is usually done by people who know one another. So I think they just wanted to focus on the manual strangulation and let us go from there.
And Joseph Scott Morgan, you know so much about this. When you saw what we saw in terms of the cause of death, strangling, also mentioned was throttling. What is that, and how is it connected to the strangulation?
Yeah, to Casey's point, this is a very intimate event. And let me kind of break this down as well. This is referred to as a C-clamp. That means that people are grabbed by this manner, okay, right in the center of the throat. That's not what happened. This is a chokehold right here. That's not what happened. This is what happened. Two hands together, either anteriorly, that means toward the front, or posteriorly toward the rear, where the hands are wrapped around the neck like this. And this is a squeezing event. You're cutting off the blood through these major vessels in the neck, including the jugular vein and as well as the carotid that supply the brain. Also, you're squeezing down the circumference of the airway. So this overall, this will take a few minutes in order to accomplish, but it's very personal. And this is another thing, Susan. If this is an anterior attack, that means from the front, the individual that would have done this would have had to have looked her right in the eye. That's what makes this so personal and so very intimate.
Just horrific to think of, her final moments. And we do know that Gabby was killed 3 to 4 weeks before her body was found. Take a listen.
I'm curious whether you're able to pinpoint a date of death and when, and if you know whether or when Gabby's remains will be returned to her family.
The remains have been returned to the mortuary here, and the mortuary is dealing with the family at this time as far as the disposition of the remains. As far as the time of death, we are estimating 3 to 4 weeks from the time that the body was found.
So, Joseph, again, when you're talking about what was discovered today, is the investigation over in terms of that aspect to it? And when will the family be able to get their daughter home?
Yeah, let's address the, at this point, this benchmark in time relative to the investigation. This portion of the investigation is done as far as Gabby's mortal remains are concerned. And I have to address something very quickly here. The fact that the coroner in his presser actually stated that they had done a CAT scan of her body gives you an idea how thorough they are. This is not something you commonly see at a medical examiner's office. Generally, we'll do like X-ray technology, which is two-dimensional. They went to the length of doing a CAT scan there at the ME's office. Remember what he said, her remains never left there. They stayed there. So that they either have a CAT scan or they brought a portable in. Now, to the point of her body, what happens is that the mortuary there in Wyoming will take charge of her remains. They'll coordinate with the mortuary of the family's choosing back home, and they'll coordinate the transportation of her remains to the family so they can properly memorialize her.
And using this CAT scan, hopefully, for a trial one day where we do finally find justice for Gabby. And the question here is, was Brian Laundrie's Labor Day camping trip part of an escape plan? That is a theory from one of your fellow HLN viewers. Our viewers have been on top of this case, piecing together evidence, asking questions. Digital detectives, as they're called, want to get back to our panel for some of the questions. Casey, I'll start with you on this. Our viewer Sunny asks you this, and I'll quote, "I can't help but wonder if the Labor Day camping trip was to stash supplies ahead of his escape and even potentially scout hiding locations." What do you think on this one, Casey?
I have been very upfront about the fact that I think the DeSoto camping trip on Labor Day weekend, which was a rearranged camping reservation from the 1st of September, apparently when Brian's parents found out he was coming home, or he came home around the 1st, they needed to be there when he arrived. They canceled that reservation, rearranged it for the next weekend, and changed it from 2 people to 3 people. And that DeSoto campground is just surrounded by water. It is a very easy place that boats could land, pick someone up, take them away. I don't know at all that that is what happened, but it's totally logical that it was a dry run. What interests me even further is those dates that he came back for 5 days in late August, after the big fight in Utah that we've seen all the police video about. Brian went home. His parents say he had to clean out a storage unit because he wanted to save money and pick up supplies to go back to rejoin Gabby. Those 5 days are of great interest to me as well. And if something very specific happened with his conversations with his parents then you might have premeditation for what happened to Gabby.
There is a lot of speculation in terms of how Brian is able to stay afloat financially. This question is for Darren. Darren, Lillian asks this: if the perpetrator returns to the scene of the crime, why aren't they checking in Wyoming? And my addition to that is maybe they are.
I mean, that's quite possible. In Teton County, the police have been on top of this because that's where her body was discovered, and that's when she was first reported missing from that location. That being said, I think that the investigation is going to bifurcate into 2 different areas in Florida, Teton, but I also think that there's another location that law enforcement is not mentioning that they're looking for Brian, because there's been an assemblance of tips that have been coming in from all over the country, and I think law enforcement is doing a great job in following up on it. But what's just so unfortunate about is you have a lot of these tips that are coming in that are uncredible, and I just hope people would stop providing these tips that are uncredible, because what it does is it takes away the resources from the germane investigation necessary in looking for Brian.